Hey, what's up, PTTers, paid to travelers? Hopefully, you've gotten a chance to read the book by now. So it's about 50 pages. It shouldn't take too long to read it. But I wanted to drop this bonus video just to just to kind of let you know about the genesis of that book, where it came from, and a little bit more about why I wrote it. So I wish I could talk to you. Maybe you can hit me up in the Facebook group. Join the Facebook group if you haven't done that yet. But I'm wondering if you guys were surprised by what I talked about in the book. I tried to be clear that this wasn't about any quick hacks or anything like that. This is really a lifestyle. If you want to get paid to travel, it really is a lifestyle. As I tried to allude to, there are things that my wife and I did that put us in a position to be able to do this on a full time basis. Um, and it was a significant lifestyle change. And it took us a couple of years to really get things in place in order for us to do this the way we want to do it. So I want to talk about the book a little bit. Not the book so much, but really about the premise of the book, which is really about joining the foreign service in order to get paid to travel. Um, I'm thinking that a lot of you may not have heard about the foreign service. You may not know what it is. You might have had to do some Google research on it, or maybe you plop foreign service in the AI chatbot or something and got you some answers. Um, but it really is a open secret, right? Not many people know that this exists. As a matter of fact, you know, the Foreign Service had a long history of being um, very elitist, very elitist. Um, diplomats really came from, back in the day, years ago, really came from well-to-do families. Families with a history of political connections, with the history of government connections. And for a long time, the ranks of the Forest Service was filled with those people. It wasn't until about, you know, 20, 15 years ago that the Foreign Service really started trying to open up its ranks and be more inclusive and kind of get out of that old guard of having people be in from well-to-do families and things of that nature. And they're still relatively new in that process, which is probably why a lot of you haven't heard of it. And you're not alone in that. A lot of people have never heard about this. I hadn't heard about it till my wife told me about it, and she hadn't heard about it until someone at her job told her about it. And so, and that's a lot of times how people find out about these things. They hear about it from someone else, and then it sounds interesting to them, and then they do more research about it, and one thing leads to another. But that's a lot of the reasons why a lot of folks haven't heard about it. Now, if it's pretty new to you, it may have piqued some of your curiosity. You may have done some research about it, and you may have come across the fact that it's pretty exclusive. It's hard to get into the Foreign Service. They have overall a 2% acceptance rate, just 2%. Um, so it can be hard to get into, but you got to know what to do and how to do it. Once you know what to do and how to do it, it becomes a little easier. But generally speaking, it can be tough to get into. And for people who succeed and get into it, a lot of them have to take, the entrance exam several times. I know people that have taken the exam, two, three, four times to get in. I know one lady who took it six times to get in. So I'm not sure why it's set up that way. I think a lot of times the exam is pretty tricky because it's hard to prepare for it. It's not a typical exam. Um, it's a lot of historical aspect of it, a lot of not pop culture, but recent events aspect to it. It's just a pretty wide ranging exam that some people struggle with because it's a little different than exams that they've taken in the past. But it can be done. My wife did it. I did it. We obviously we know people that do it, so it can be done. You just have to prepare properly and know what you're getting into it. And I can help you guys do that if that's something that you're interested in doing. Um, what else I want to talk to you about? So I'm just wondering what kind of questions you have. Hopefully you guys have jumped into the Facebook group. I'll be in there later on today. Maybe ask you guys some questions and what kind of questions you may have of the book once you've read it. But what else can I talk about here? About a little bit about the lifestyle. So, generally speaking, when you have a position in the foreign service, once you have officially been accepted and passed all the qualifications and everything, and you're officially in, you get your post for your first opportunity. You don't get to pick your post really for your first two posts. You do get to provide input into what those posts are or what your preference may be, but you really don't get to pick them. Typically, how it works for your first two posts, you get a list, and then you can rank that list based on your preference, and they take that into consideration before they make that assignment. But again, it doesn't mean you're going to get your number one pick. For our first post, we did get our number one pick, and a lot of people do, but some people don't. That's just kind of where it works for your first two picks. It works the same for your second rotation. You get a list of places to choose from based on your particular job track that you're in and what the availability is around the world for that job track. It could be 20 locations around the world that can have an opening for your job track. And the government is going to decide based on where the biggest need is. So you can rank based on your preference, but they're going to put you where the biggest need is, and it may or may not line up to what your preference is. But that's just for the first two posts. And typically the posts are 2 years. So that's 4 years. So 4 years max, you may get sent to a place that may not be your first choice. But after those two rotations, you get to pick, right? You pick your choice, you pick your post, and 9 times out of 10, you will get your pick from there on out. So what happens when you make your pick? You make your pick, you get your assignment, and again, it may or may not match your pick. But once you get your post designation, you begin the process of preparing to go to that post. You would get assigned a social sponsor. Your social sponsor is a person or a couple that is paired with you to help you get adjusted to the new location. They have been there for at least a year and a half or so. So they've had the opportunity to get adjusted to that location. And they're assigned to you to kind of help mentor you and help you get adjusted to that new location, provide you anything you need. I remember our first social sponsor, for some reason, they didn't have pictures of our apartment available online. So one of the things we did was have them go to the apartment and take pictures of it and send it to us so we could have an idea of what the place looked like and kind of what we were getting into. That was very helpful. They also stocked our fridge for us, picked up our keys to our apartment, different things like that, logistical things that may be hard to do, if you're on the other side of the world, right? So you have some feet on the ground, some boots on the ground that can kind of help you get some of those things set up before you get there, which is very helpful. So anyway, so you get your social sponsor, you get your assignment, you get your time frame for when you want to show up there, for when you're going to show up there, and so from then you just pack your stuff. The government will hire a private company, a private moving company, to come into your house and pack up all of your stuff, load it into boxes, load it into trucks, and then ship it to your new location. If you're coming from the United States and you're going to some place in Europe or Africa or Asia, right, that involves a long flight, most of your stuff will be shipped via sea. A small amount of your stuff will be shipped via air. You will be given a weight allocation to figure out, how much stuff you want to ship by air. So typically that's the stuff that you want the most, or you need the most, or you need the fastest. You have that ship by air. They come in, they pack everything up. What my wife and I typically do, we organize our house based on air shipments and flight shipments, and then we can each tell the movers, this stuff goes by sea, this stuff goes by air. We label it, or not label the individual items, but we label the area for them to take, and they pack it all up, ship it all up, wrap it all up, take great care, and they ship it. Some people may be concerned about, the condition that their stuff may arrive in. We didn't have any problems. Our first post came from Michigan, and it went all the way to Africa. So that's a very, very long way. And the stuff by sea took several months to get there, and our stuff arrived in perfect condition. I had a huge 86-inch flat screen TV. They even made a wood crate for that TV. They constructed a wooden crate for that TV, put that TV in that crate, padded it nicely, and shipped it, and it arrived perfectly. So they will take good care of your stuff. So that's not really a concern. When you get to your post, you typically you bring the stuff that you need right away. You bring with you the stuff that you can wait, a few weeks. You ship that by air. The stuff like maybe furniture or whatever, that may take a while, but most places are furnished, so you don't have to worry about that. What else am I going to talk about? I'm just kind of rambling here. I didn't really have a defined agenda for this video. I just kind of wanted to fill in some of the gaps you may have based on reading the book or kind of finding out what this is. What else? Like I said, it's a lifestyle. Your living expenses are completely paid for. You don't pay for rent. You don't pay for utilities, things of that nature. You do pay for your food, your groceries, obviously, your personal things. A lot of times when you're living overseas, it's very easy to have domestic staff working for you. So you can get a cook, you can get a housekeeper. If you have a big family, you can get a nanny. I know a person who has 2 nannies. He has a pretty large staff, actually. He has 2 nannies. He has a driver. He has a couple of housekeepers. So he has at least 4 or 5 staff working in his home. He has, I think, 3 kids. The rates are relatively cheap. So it allows you to kind of live your life, to the fullest, not worrying about, managing the house and things of that nature. You can just worry about getting adjusted to your new surroundings, getting adjusted to your new job, without worrying about, the minutia of, cooking and cleaning and things of that nature. You can kind of farm that out to local domestic staff, which the country typically encourages because it helps the local economy and things of that nature. What else? Traveling. Obviously, you're probably wondering, okay, where does all this traveling come in? So obviously, the first part of the travel comes in when you're assigned to your post, right? So you're coming from the States, you could be assigned to anywhere in the world. Right now, we're in Africa. And so that first big chunk of travel comes from the fact that you're living abroad at this post, and it's all paid for by your employer. The other part of that is because you are or will be in a certain part of the country that gives you opportunities to explore those countries, opportunities that you may not have had if you're coming for the States. And even if you did have them, they would be a lot more expensive, right? Because you're coming from the States to Europe, to Asia, to Africa, to South America. You know, Obviously it's a lot more expensive. But if you're in that region already, it's a lot less expensive to travel to those locations, right? So the other aspect of the job oriented travel is that if you're assigned in one region, you may have job responsibilities to travel to other countries within that region, right? So, based here in Ethiopia, my wife has responsibilities to look after a couple of the smaller countries in the region that have smaller local staff or less experienced local staff. So she can pop over to other countries in Northeast Africa, for work, paid for work. Uh, she can pop over to Paris. She can pop over for Germany for work related things. And typically, when that happens, we schedule our trips so we can have some padding on the front end, or on the back end, or both in some cases, where we can explore the countries, on our own free time. And so that's the second part. The third part of the travel comes in from you just being in that region. I'm in Africa right now, right? Africa has 54 countries. And so it's my goal to hit as many of those 54 countries as possible within the 2 years that we're stationed here. And it's easy to do because we're already over here, right? Last weekend, I went to Kenya just for the weekend, right? I just popped down to Kenya. It was a 2-hour flight. Just popped down to Kenya for the weekend and did a safari and then came back, right? So it's the opportunity to do things of that nature, a lot less expensive because, again, you're not coming from the United States to Kenya. You're coming from just 2 hours away to Kenya. And so next week, I'm going to Uganda. Uganda is about a little bit, it's a 2-hour flight. It's about just under or just at 2 hours to get to Uganda. So I'm going to Uganda this weekend. My wife and I are going this weekend to see the gorillas, right? And so it's a quick trip, it's cheap, and it allows us to keep filling up our passport. And we'll do that, keep plopping over to different countries in the continent of Africa while we're here over the next 2 years. Now, we may not hit 54 countries, but we're definitely going to hit a lot more than we would have been able to hit if we had been coming from the United States, right? So that's the third leg of the travel. And so that's pretty much how it works, right? That's kind of the blueprint, right? The next post, let's just say, I would like to stay in Africa for a couple more posts, at least one more post. But if we're not able to stay here, I want to go to South America, right? Go to South America. I could be stationed in Bogota, and I can pop over to Brazil, pop over to Ecuador, plop down to Peru, and just kind of visit that whole part of the world, on weekends or long weekends or, a 5-day vacation or a 7-day vacation or a 10-day vacation. And the flights within South America are really cheap. I spent some time there for Christmas vacation, 9 days in Colombia, and we flew to 2 different cities from Bogota to Cartagena to Bolivia the flights were $30. $30 both ways, right? So you can go all over that region for pretty cheap. So that's where the traveling comes in. That's where a lot of travel is free or very, very, very inexpensive. And again, because your living expenses are being taken care of by the U.S. government, you have more money to allocate to other things, you may prefer spending money on versus, paying rent or paying mortgage. Oh, let me talk about the mortgage. Now, some people may own a house already. So if you're a current home owner, you can choose to keep your home and just maybe rent it out, or you can sell your home. We sold our house. We didn't feel like we didn't want to keep the house. We're not coming back there, so it's really no need to keep the house. We're gonna buy a house in a different state, and so we chose to sell a house. But some people don't sell their homes. Some people just keep their house, they rent it out, you know, and that's how they pay their mortgage that way. And so they still end up, not having to pay the mortgage, even if they keep a house, right? Because they can rent that out, and it kind of covers the cost of that mortgage for them. So there are options there. Um, you know, it's almost 50-50 what people decide whether they're going to keep their house or sell it. I think it all depends on whether or not you see yourself going back to that house at some point in time, or if you want to keep the property in the family or something. But yeah, so that's it. Just kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Hop into the Facebook group. Hit me up there for questions. Until next time, bon voyage.